few differences, and a joint committee made up of 7 senators and 7 House members were selected to iron out the differences. Congressman Gibson was one of those 7 House members. Believing there would be no problem arriving at a compromise, he gave his proxy to Chairman Rankin of the House Committee to vote for him, and he returned to Georgia. A compromise was not easy to come by. The VFW and the Disabled American Veterans desired some changes in the bill, while the American Legion did not. The 7 Senate committee members were unanimous in their support of the final version of the Senate bill. The House members were split 3 and 3, but because he was against the final compromise version of the bill, Chairman Rankin refused to vote Congressman Gibson's proxy for it. He said Gibson has to be here in person to vote. He agreed for the Joint Committee to meet a final time the next day, but if Congressman Gibson was not there in person to vote, the GI Bill could not be sent to the President, and the next Congress would have to start all over again. The word went out, said to come directly from the White House. Find Gibson and get him here. The official word from the congressman's office was that he had to go home because of a severe illness, was at home under a doctor's care. The telephone lines buzzed, but the congressman could not be located. The local Douglas radio station, WDMG, even broadcast the urgent need to locate him, but to no avail. The congressman did have an illness, and it was an acute flare-up of a chronic disease. It was called alcoholism. He might go for months without a drink, but when the urge hit him, he would return to Douglas, round up some drinking buddies, and they usually would wind up for several days at the Coffee County Hunting and Fishing Retreat on the Satilla River in Brantley County. This time was no different. The official spin that would later come out of Washington was that he'd been in Valdosta at his doctor's office and didn't return home until around midnight and was unaware of the legislative crisis in Washington that demanded his presence there. The Washington spin also had an Eastern Airline passenger plane being held up at the Jacksonville airport for several hours to allow him to travel to Jacksonville after midnight to board it. The local version was very different. It had a congressman and a sober friend being put in a private compartment on the late afternoon Atlantic Coastline Champion passenger train. Some said it was in Nahunta, while others said in Jessup. And he was plied with coffee all the way to Washington. There he was met at Union Station by a driver in a government vehicle, carried to his apartment where he was made presentable. He was then driven to the Joint Committee meeting where he broke the tie and the bill was sent to the President. President Roosevelt, who signed it on June 22nd, 1944. Only then did Congressman Gibson and his friend board an Eastern Airline flight, but to fly back home. All this had occurred while D-Day and the Normandy invasion was happening, so passage of this most important bill was placed on the back pages of the newspaper. The GI Bill will be modified and fine-tuned many times in the future, but Congressman Gibson will forever be remembered as a Georgia congressman who saved the original GI Bill. By January of 1949, Georgia had endured and overcome the national humiliation of the 3 governors controversy of 1946. Briefly, for those not familiar with it, Eugene Talmadge was elected governor in 1946 to serve the 1947-48 term. He died after the November general election, but before he could be sworn in as governor on January 1st, 1947. The Talmadge Brain Trust, fearing such a situation could happen, had loyal supporters, primarily in Telfair, his home county, and surrounding counties, to write in his son Herman's name on the November general election ballot. M.E. Thompson was elected lieutenant governor and claimed the office. Outgoing governor Ellis Arnold refused to vacate his office until the courts decided the issue. And Herman Talmadge claimed the office because of receiving the most write-in votes in the November general election. The courts ruled that Lieutenant Governor M.E. Thompson was the legal acting governor until the next general election in 2 years. M.E. Thompson served as governor in 1947 and 48. In the Democratic primary of the summer of 1949, he was defeated by Herman Talmadge, who would serve the remaining 2 years of his father's, Eugene Talmadge's, term in office. The term of the governor's office was 4 years and limited the governor to that one 4-year term. Governor Herman Talmadge asked Eugene Cook, the Attorney General of Georgia, for a ruling on whether he could succeed himself after serving his 2-year term. He, Talmadge, let it be known that if the Attorney General ruled he could not succeed himself, then he planned to run for the Attorney General's office. Whether this could have influenced the Attorney General's ruling that Herman could succeed himself as governor is open to speculation. But the ruling was not challenged, and Herman would serve 6 consecutive years as Georgia's governor. From 1917 until 1962, all of Georgia's statewide primary elections had been decided by the county unit vote system, not by popular vote. As the Republican Party in Georgia was almost non-existent in those years, the winner of the county unit Democratic primary was the automatic winner in the November general election. The number of county unit votes per county was determined by the population of the county. The 8 largest counties by population had 6 county unit votes. The next 30 had 4 county unit votes, and the remaining 121 had 2 county unit votes, making a total of 410, of which at least 206 were necessary to win. Under the county unit system, one person's vote in a small rural county meant as much as 600 or more votes in populous Fulton County. This is the reason that one of Eugene Talmadge's most popular campaign sayings was said to be, "I don't want to carry a single county in Georgia with a streetcar line in it." The Georgia county unit system was ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court in 1961. Carl Sanders was the first governor elected by popular vote. Herman Talmadge's 2-year term as governor began January 1st, 1949. He and the General Assembly had a great honeymoon session. All the bills he favored or wanted passed did so with ease, as did his political appointments. One of those appointments was Wayne County's outgoing sheriff, Robert Warren, who was appointed Executive Director of the Department of Corrections. After the 40 days of the General Assembly was over, the governor's official duties became more mundane and ceremonial. Governor Talmadge was still young, and his private lifestyle began to overshadow his public life. He began to appear for speaking engagements inebriated, or late, or not at all. Occasionally, he had to be helped and led off the stage before completion of his speeches. His public actions became a source of embarrassment and ridicule for his friends and supporters, as well as a source of alarm to the Talmadge political power brokers. The anti-Talmadge media at that time still honored the long-standing silent media political understanding of not capitalizing on a public figure's private life. But the governor's